the world changed in an instant, as if history itself had been waiting for this moment to arrive. The air was thick with tension, and the sense of unease was palpable across continents. On June 13, 2025, a date that would soon be etched into the collective memory of humanity, the world awoke to a new reality. In the pre-dawn darkness, a lion roared over the Middle East, not a creature of flesh and blood, but the thunderous engines of Israeli fighter jets and the silent glide of drones cutting through the night sky. The world watched, breath held, as the first act of a new crisis unfolded. Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a meticulously planned campaign aimed at dismantling Iran's nuclear program, which for years had been viewed as an existential threat not only to Israel, but to the stability of the entire region. The strikes were precise and devastating, shattering the region's fragile balance. Explosions lit up the night and the world's attention snapped to the Middle East, where the stakes had never been higher. Iran, wounded and enraged, responded with a furious counterattack. The air was filled with the sound of sirens and the thunder of retaliation, as the conflict escalated with terrifying speed. Hundreds of missiles and drones streaked toward Israeli cities, lighting up the night sky and testing the limits of air defense systems. Civilians huddled in shelters praying for safety as the world watched in horror. The United States, Israel's closest ally, joined the fight without hesitation, launching overwhelming strikes against Iranian targets. The conflict quickly expanded, drawing in global powers and raising fears of a much wider war. Global markets trembled, oil prices soared, and the United Nations called for peace, calls that, in the chaos, went unheeded. The world economy teetered on the edge, and leaders scrambled to respond to the rapidly changing situation. For millions, this was more than another war. It felt significant, even prophetic. Families gathered around televisions, communities prayed together, and a sense of dread settled over cities far from the front lines. Many connected the headlines to ancient biblical prophecies, recalling warnings about Persia and alliances foretold by Ezekiel. Religious leaders and scholars debated the meaning of these events, searching for answers in ancient texts. The question was no longer just what was happening, but why. People everywhere wondered if there was a deeper purpose, a hidden meaning behind the chaos and destruction. This story will walk you through the 10 days that shook the world. Military operations, political fallout, and the deeper meaning many see in these events. We'll explore the decisions made in war rooms, the protests in the streets, and the questions that echo through history. Are we witnessing just another conflict, or a pivotal moment foretold thousands of years ago? As the dust settles and the world holds its breath, we begin our journey into the heart of a crisis that may change everything. Operation Rising Lion began after months of mounting tension and clandestine preparations, as Israel's top military minds gathered in secret to finalize their boldest plan yet. In the early hours of June 13th, with the world still asleep, the operation launched with stunning precision, marking a pivotal moment in Middle Eastern history. Israeli F-35s, supported by a fleet of covert drones, soared across hostile skies to strike Iran's most critical nuclear sites, Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan, crippling the heart of Iran's nuclear ambitions in a matter of minutes. Simultaneously, elite Israeli special forces and cyber units targeted senior commanders of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, disrupting communications and crippling its ability to coordinate regional proxies and retaliatory strikes. Years of painstaking intelligence gathering, surveillance, and meticulous planning culminated in these coordinated strikes, as Israeli leaders acted decisively before the narrow window of opportunity closed forever. The aftermath was immediate and dramatic. A wave of celebration swept through Israeli streets, while in Iran, outrage erupted, with protests and anger boiling over as smoke rose from devastated sites. At a hastily convened press conference, Israel's foreign minister declared the operation a resounding success, boasting that years had been shaved off Iran's nuclear timeline and that Israel had restored its deterrence. For Iran, the blow was both strategic and deeply symbolic, a national humiliation broadcast live as the supreme leader addressed a furious nation and vowed swift, punishing retribution. The International Atomic Energy Agency soon confirmed the destruction of key facilities, with inspectors and scientists surveying the extensive damage and loss of critical infrastructure. Iran's nuclear program lay in ruins, its centrifuges shattered and ambitions set back by years. while anxious world leaders watched the unfolding crisis, bracing for the inevitable response. The lion had roared, sending shockwaves across the region, but the wounded Persian Empire was far from defeated and was about to strike back with fury. As military convoys mobilized and missile launchers were readied, the world watched with bated breath. The stage was set for a wider, more dangerous conflict that could reshape the Middle East. As news of the Israeli strikes spread across the globe, living rooms and cafes everywhere buzzed with anxious conversation. The world watched in real time as headlines flashed urgent updates, and the sense of uncertainty grew with every new report. In the midst of this turmoil, many people, both in the region and far beyond, turned to the Old Testament for answers, searching for meaning in ancient prophecies. Their focus landed on Jeremiah chapter 49, a passage that has long fascinated scholars and believers alike. The prophet Jeremiah, writing over 2.5 millennia ago, warned of judgment on Elam, an ancient kingdom whose territory now lies in southwestern Iran. This region, significant in biblical times, is today home to some of Iran's most critical military and nuclear installations, making the prophecy feel especially relevant. Jeremiah's words, "I will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay of their might," seemed eerily prescient as Israeli fighter jets targeted missile sites and nuclear facilities. The ancient text appeared to echo through the chaos of modern warfare, blurring the line between past and present. The prophecy also spoke of chaos and dispersion, describing a time when the people of Elam would be scattered to the four winds. As violence escalated, thousands of Iranians fled their homes, seeking safety wherever they could find it, on foot, by car, or across tense borders. Foreign nationals and Iranians alike scrambled to escape the growing conflict, crowding airports and embassy gates. The scenes of desperate families and hurried evacuations seemed to mirror Jeremiah's vision of a people scattered and uprooted. Finally, the prophecy foretold regime change. "I will set my throne in Elam and destroy their king and officials." This line, mysterious and ominous, has fueled speculation about the fate of Iran's leadership. For some, these words pointed to the possible downfall of Iran's theocratic rulers. Protests in the streets and growing unrest only added to the sense that history and prophecy might be converging. As the world watched, many wondered if these ancient words were unfolding before their eyes. Newsrooms debated the significance, and social media buzzed with theories and interpretations. Was this the beginning of the end for the Islamic Republic, or just another chapter in a long and turbulent history? The parallels between prophecy and current events were too striking for many to ignore, leaving the world to wonder what might come next. Iran's response was swift and brutal. The IRGC launched Operation True Promise 2. Over 300 missiles and 1,000 drones rained down on Israel. Israeli air defenses intercepted most, but some struck Tel Aviv and Ramat Gan, killing civilians and leaving thousands homeless. Critical infrastructure, including Ben Gurion Airport, was targeted. Iran's message was clear: vengeance for vengeance. The conflict spread as Iran's proxies, especially the Houthis in Yemen, joined the fight, launching missiles at southern Israel and threatening U.S. ships in the Red Sea. Iran deployed advanced Khaybar-Shekan missiles, signaling total war. The region spiraled into a deadly cycle of attack and counterattack. The Middle East teetered on the edge of catastrophe. As Iran's proxies joined the fight, many looked to Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39. The prophecy describes a coalition led by Persia, modern Iran, attacking Israel in the latter days. The alliance, including Iran and the Houthis, fit the prophetic pattern of a multi-front assault. Ezekiel's vision of a great horde coming like a cloud seemed to echo the massive drone and missile barrage. The prophecy also foretells Israel's enemies being defeated by divine intervention, not military might. For believers, the current escalation is a precursor to this prophesied outcome. The armies are assembling for a final confrontation. Many see history and prophecy converging before their eyes. On June 22, the conflict escalated as the United States entered the war. President Trump authorized direct strikes on Iran's nuclear program, vowing to defend Israel and halt Iran's nuclear ambitions. U.S. B-2 bombers dropped bunker-busting bombs on Fordow, while Navy submarines launched Tomahawk missiles at Natanz and Isfahan. The strikes were devastating. Iran's nuclear infrastructure was crippled. Iran's parliament responded by closing the Strait of Hormuz, sending oil prices soaring and threatening global recession. The war had become a global crisis. Some saw echoes of Daniel chapter 11, where a king of the north intervenes to protect Israel. The U.S. role as Israel's protector seemed to fit this ancient narrative. The world watched as prophecy and geopolitics collided. Beyond strategy and prophecy, the war's human cost was staggering. In 10 days, hundreds died and thousands were wounded in Iran. Israeli and American strikes, though targeted, caused collateral damage. Hospitals and ambulances were hit, compounding civilian suffering. In Israel, relentless missile attacks killed dozens and left thousands homeless, living in constant fear. Daily life was upended, airspace closed, internet disrupted, economies shaken. The United Nations warned of a deadly downward spiral, but world powers remained divided. Many saw these events through the lens of Matthew 24, wars and rumors of wars, the beginning of birth pains. For believers, the conflict was not just political, but spiritual, a sign of a prophesied future. The world felt smaller, more dangerous, and on the brink of something new. The suffering was real and the stakes immense. The world stands at a crossroads. 10 days of war have pushed the Middle East, and the world, to the brink. Iran, though battered, is not defeated and could escalate further, perhaps through Hezbollah. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz and Houthi attacks threaten global oil supplies and economic stability. The U.S. and its allies face a stark choice: use force to reopen the strait, risking wider war, or endure economic pain. Amidst the chaos, faint hopes for diplomacy emerge. Turkey and Oman offer to mediate. Rumors swirl of a new deal, sanctions relief for a verifiable end to Iran's nuclear program. The choice is clear: escalation and bloodshed, or a fragile, uneasy peace. The coming days will determine whether this conflict is a footnote or the start of something far worse. The stakes have never been higher. The margin for error is razor thin. We have lived through 10 days that reshaped our world. Israeli strikes, Iranian retaliation, and American intervention have changed the Middle East forever. Ancient prophecies from Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, and Matthew now frame how millions interpret these events. For some, this is prophecy fulfilled. For others, it's the result of human choices and political ambition. Are we watching fate unfold or shaping our own destiny? Perhaps both. Human choices as instruments of a larger plan. One thing is certain: the world after June 2025 is not the same. We have entered a new and dangerous era and must all pray for wisdom and peace.